Hello, Facebook family. It's Joe Hawkins with Influencer Magazine. And tonight we've got a very special guest for you. We have Jeff Borschowa. And I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, Jeff.
You are, with a wonderful accent, no less.
Fantastic. So, Jeff, it's early morning for him, and for us, it's evening. So, Jeff is coming to us all the way from Canada, and I'm currently in the UAE. And Jeff is going to be talking to us today about the secret of masterminds. So, welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Joe, I'm excited. Thank you for having me. We're going to have some fun today and hopefully share some insight into the secrets behind masterminds. And I want to dispel the myth. Everyone tells me masterminds suck, and I want to dispel that myth. So, am I
Wow,
allowed to use that language?
that is not my experience.
Well, the real secret to it, and I think this is when I dig deeper, because I always ask because it's not my experience, and I believe masterminds are the greatest force for good in business if they're done right.
Yes.
But what I find is a lot of people do masterminds wrong, and that gives them this ongoing belief that masterminds don't work. So I want to share some secrets today that'll hopefully, if people haven't engaged in masterminds, I want to shed some light on that. And quite frankly, if they have engaged in masterminds, I want to help them make that process better. So,
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you, Jeff. Tell us, do what sort of things have you experienced with masterminds that you've got to share?
so I think for me, and I get chills in Canada. We use the term goosebumps. I think other parts of the world they call them chill bumps, whatever it is. But when you see, so my definition of a mastermind is it's two or more people coming together to solve a problem,
Yes.
usually a common problem. And I base a lot of my experiences with masterminds based on the teaching of Napoleon Hill. So it's
Me too.
not new to me. But my big secret, the number one secret of masterminds is it's not something separate that we do. It's not some formal thing. Most of us do it accidentally or naturally, and then we lose sight of that when we try to do it deliberately.
Ah,
So, most modern religions, when they get together and they're trying to solve challenges of poverty or oppression, um, even today with the race protests, the people coming together trying to solve a problem, they're forming, as Napoleon Hill said, when two minds come together, a third mind is formed. But the idea is that we're smarter as a group than we are individually. So my number one secret is we're all really good at masterminds. We just don't know that we're really good at it. So that's number one. Number two secret, when people tell me that they've been in masterminds and it didn't work, usually what I've discovered is that they're free. There's no structure to it, and nobody's getting results. And so those turn into sort of you get what you pay for moments, but really, truly, it's sort of if you don't have a structure to it, if you don't have planned outcomes, you're going to get exactly what you put into it, which is going to be confused and a little bit disorganized. So that's the second secret is you've got to have a structure.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And like you say, what you put in, you get out.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of people who are new to masterminds, when they're planning a mastermind, they start with how do I reduce the time people spend? And that's entirely the wrong question. It's got to be about how do I increase the value. And by the way, I don't dismiss the idea of free masterminds. Free masterminds can be great if you've got a whole bunch of people with a common purpose, you're moving in the right direction. But the most important piece is the structure. Now, if you're running masterminds, and somebody was to ask for my advice, I would say you don't want to run free masterminds because we value what we pay for. One lesson I learned is that the more people pay, the more they pay attention. So that's another secret of masterminds. You want to focus on the value that you add, not the time that they're going to spend or the cost of the mastermind. It's got to be about, you know, people will come to a full day session every week if you're giving them massive value in their life. Not to say you want to meet every week, but the goal should be how much value can I add, how much impact, how do I change the lives of my clients, not how do I get paid, X dollars for this session. So to me, that's the fundamentals of masterminding. And then once you get into the nitty gritty of it, this is where um, I'm part of a group. It's called Get It Together Masterminds. We teach people how to run masterminds. And the biggest shift, and this is, I may end up talking about dolphins, Joe. I'm sorry.
And no, don't be sorry. We expect it, Jeff. If you don't, you'll disappoint me terribly.
Okay, well, we will talk about dolphins today. But the number one burning challenge with masterminds is the participants themselves. So one of the challenges I see in people who do masterminding as a profession, whether they're facilitators or coaches or therapists or counselors, and side note, I believe the 12-step recovery programs have an element of masterminding with a very noble goal of getting people clean. So masterminds have a long tradition in our history. Um, Most good things in history have been done by people who've masterminded. Um, just to be fair, most of the bad things in history were done by masterminds. So it's a powerful tool for good or evil, but it's should be for good, in my opinion. Um, but the biggest challenge of masterminds is that you tend to get people who care a lot about the outcome and they want to bring people together. They're not aware of the impact of a group dynamic.
Yes. Yeah.
So rant alert, I'm going to share my insight in this, and it's based on a book called Strategy of the Dolphin. The author is Dudley Lynch, and absolutely game changer book for me because it helped me understand, and I will bring this back to a point, I promise. But basically, in the book, there's three kinds of people in business today, and I'll be quick on this one, but it is a game changer once you see it, once you experience it. So the first group of people are referred to as carp, CARP, the fish,
Yeah.
and basically they're the general masses. They're everywhere. A carp's view of the world is one of absolute scarcity.
Yes.
So a carp makes a terrible mastermind participant because their view of the world is I'm going to lose no matter what I do. So I'm going to play to not lose too badly. So they'll suck the life out of a mastermind. You know, if you're looking at, say a safety committee and you want to make a work site safer, carp would be good for a mastermind because they're always looking at the risks and they can tell you exactly what the risks are. Um, and the other thing about carp is they have a behavioral addiction. They're always the victim. So every time you run into a carp, they just got eaten by a shark or something. They're the ones who spread that little cloud of doom and gloom everywhere they go. Um, they're high energy to maintain and keep them focused. So carp, they have their place in the world. Obviously, they're the majority, but they're not good participants in a mastermind. Now, the next one is the shark, and sharks are also addicted to negative behavior. But if you have the victim being the carp, sharks tend to be, pardon the expression, but they're the predator. So sharks believe in scarcity as well, but their view of scarcity is there's enough for one, so I win, you lose. So sharks are always looking to take from somebody, and they just believe if they take enough from enough people that they'll have enough, but it's still about scarcity, and they don't mean it, but that's how they are. So they're going to always
They don't
act.
mean
Usually
their
sharks come
nature.
from childhood trauma or something like that. So the behavior is defined early in life, and they don't question it. And the thing is, a shark is going to be your most competitive. They drive the fastest cars, they have the fanciest houses. They're very motivated, but there's always this underlying fear that somebody's going to take this away. So the sad part about sharks is they tend to not form long relationships because sooner or later they'll turn on one another. Now the good thing about a shark is if you're running, an ad contest or an affiliate contest, they always want to be the best to promote you. So they're good to promote your masterminds. But as you can imagine, in a mastermind, they come in, they'll take all the ideas, they'll make it all about them. And once they've gotten exactly what they needed, they move on. So they're not a good fit for a good mastermind. Now, dolphins, on the other hand, and this is my favorite place to play, dolphins are very much about the pod. So dolphins are herd mentality creatures. They like to help others. But a dolphin's view of the world is one of abundance. And basically, if they can't win the game, or sorry, play a game where everybody wins based on set of rules and the set game and the set players, dolphins will work together to change the rules, change the players, change the game so that everybody can win. And for a dolphin, a win is not just I ended up with something. It's partly we're making the world a better place in the process. So if you get dolphins in a mastermind, that's where you'll see positive social change while having a strong, successful group. So good group of dolphins will get together. They'll make changes in the world, and usually there's a philanthropy thing tied to the dolphin experience. They want to make the world a better place, whether it's locally, very hyper local for their family or for their community, or maybe it's global and they want to, add education elements, whatever it is. So um, dolphins can be a lot of fun to be around. And by the way, sharks use a lot of language about dominance and winning, and work is hard,
Ah,
because
interesting.
yeah. So sharks are always working. Dolphins tend to be playing,
Playing.
and that's I didn't realize it until I read the book, but that's my language is, can we play nice together? So for me, a mastermind, the ideal mastermind is one comprised of dolphins.
Yes.
So that was a long way of getting to that point. But, you know, I've run many a group, and it's fascinating how quickly a shark will tear the group apart. With a group of carp, the group just naturally dies this slow, languishing death, and you're watching it go, "What's going on?" Like it's dying, but you can't stop it. So, but with dolphins, you get that energy in the room. It's focused on a greater good than just I'm going to make more money. But having said that, when you get a bunch of dolphins together, the money is a natural flow.
Because everybody's interested in making sure that each other wins rather than receive and leave.
Oh, I like that. Receive and leave. Yes. That's much more polite than the phrase I usually use. Yeah,
Do tell us.
well, the sharks come in, they consume everything, they crap all over the place, and then they leave. Yours is much better by far. But the thing is, sharks will leave a lot of confusion in their wake, and that is one of their tactics. By the way, they spread confusion, and they'll pit people against one another so that you don't realize that, you know, they're sneaking in to attack. And um, yeah, it's a fascinating thing. But in the wild, the only real threat to a shark is a pod of dolphins. Um, and if a shark attacks a weak member of a pod, the dolphins will circle the shark and they'll actually deliberately they'll target their liver and their breathing so that they'll take out the shark and eliminate the threat. So
Wow.
they'll actually deliberately use their noses to penetrate the gills. So sharks
So they can
avoid
get
dolphins.
dolphins are not sissies. They can get the job done.
Yeah, and the funny thing about dolphins, and people will say, "Well, I can't tell if this person's a dolphin or not." If something doesn't matter, they'll play like a carp. So, you know, if they're, for example, playing a board game and they're just there to play the game, they're not going to be cutthroat and try to win. Um, if it's high stakes and they need to be, they can act like a shark. But the end of the day, they're going to choose more often than not to show up as a dolphin. So it's fundamentally it is a choice. We can learn to choose. You know, do we believe in abundance? Do we believe in scarcity? Um, but tying it back to masterminding, I love playing the game of masterminds with dolphins because you have a lot of possibility conversations, and those can be really fascinating. You know, it's the ideal of the way the world should be. We sit around and think, well, you know, the belief is the world could be better. If it could be better, how could we make it better? You know, so there's a lot of big ideas that come out of a simple mastermind.
So get it done in the shortest, most fun manner.
Absolutely, and with the biggest impact. So
Yes.
it's, you know, and I'm finding, especially now with, you know, we've got COVID, we've got, you know, all the racial tensions, we've got all, you know, every day there's some global catastrophe going on. What I'm finding is that as the noise rises, you can hear the dolphin song underneath it, and the dolphins are finding one another. And, you know, it's fascinating to me because I didn't realize this world existed, you know, and I recognize in the past I've surrounded myself, you know, they teach you that, you know, to be in business, you got to be ruthless, you got to do all of these things. And, you know, the saying, nice guys finish last, always sat poorly with me because as, you know, a dolphin and not knowing it, I looked at it and said, well, if I have to beat everyone to win, this is not a game I want to play. And life to me should be about more than winning. It should be about, you know, having fun. And, you know, we try to teach our children that it's not just, you know, playing the game, but it's how you play the game, who you play it with. So
The spirit,
having, oh, sorry.
the spirit of the game.
Yeah. And that's where dolphins come in, as if we don't like the game, let's change it.
I
And it's fascinating because carp will resist whatever change you put at them. Dolphins ask why not. You know, they're very much open to it. So if you're running masterminds, and I would argue that if you're in any sort of profession whatsoever, you should have a mastermind of your best clients. Even if you're, you know, in a trade or something that wouldn't typically be considered intellectual, a mastermind with your best clients is an amazing way to figure out how to clone your best clients and to get more of those best clients. If you're a professional, I would say have a mastermind of the people that would normally feed you clients.
Mm.
And that's another sort of side rant. If we've got time, I can get into the detail there. But, you know, the fastest way to grow a business is not through paid marketing. It's by having a broad network of people who will actively help you promote your business to their tribe, if you will. And it's a fascinating space. The marketing world is full of the experts that'll show you how to get past that, or how to drive cold traffic. Um, my goal in life is not cold traffic. It's how to find people like me and offer them the best of what I do. And if you do that right, it's actually a lot more effective than cold advertising ever will be.
Absolutely, because there's a spirit of trust already. There's a kinship, isn't there?
Absolutely. And the best client to me, and again, we use language in all our marketing. We deliberately try to repel the carps, repel the sharks, attract the dolphins. The best referrals for me come from a fellow dolphin, because there's no strings attached. It's my gratitude is enough. Having said that, if you pay referral fees, you'll again, a shark makes a great referral partner as long as you keep them arm's length and you keep an eye on.
And you probably need a contract with the shark, huh?
Sharks will test the limits of every contract you put with them. So uh, yeah, and if it's hard to negotiate the contract, you're probably dealing with a shark. A dolphin will look for inclusivity and how do we win together, whereas the shark is looking for what's my out, what's my win, what's my, how do I protect me, and how do I leave you exposed and weak. So um, yeah, I've learned this from a colleague of mine, Tom Matson. With sharks, you need contracts. With dolphins, you need agreements.
Mm.
And that's the harshness of it, that dolphins, we can agree and it's an agreement among friends. With sharks, you need a contract.
So the gentleman's agreement was a dolphin thing.
Absolutely. It was either a dolphin thing or sharks invented it to take advantage of dolphins. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't seen the history of that, but
I'm going to have to get sharp on this, Jeff, because this looks like a life skill that really is invaluable.
well, it's fascinating, and I'm trying to teach it to I've got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. I'm trying to teach it to them. Um, and that's the thing. Sometimes we go through life and we wonder, why did that person hurt my feelings, or why did that person do that? If they're sharks at an early age, they've had a lot of trauma. There's something that caused that. Same with carp. So if you can recognize that that's who they are and that's how they're going to show up, then you can decide, is that somebody I want to play with? Is it safe to play with them? And again, in sports, I'm guessing, the person who rises to the top to be the star might be a shark. Not always, but probably. Unless, they're the sole heroes of the team. If you see a team where there's one person, they're probably a shark. Now, if you see a team that's winning as a team, probably a bunch of dolphins. So it's a lot of people think, well, the sharks always win. No, they don't. Long term, the sharks live in their big mansions and they tend to not have friends. So I'd rather be the dolphin with the pod than the lone shark. So, but yeah, it's fascinating in terms of, if you get a shark mastermind going, their focus is going to be, how do we win, how do we dominate. Um, and you see a lot of sharks in, multi-level marketing, or sales agencies. They move up quickly, um, but they tend to top out and lose momentum because they've screwed everybody over around them and nobody trusts them. So
I have seen that.
yeah, it's
I've
the
heard
rise quickly
it.
and then to the ceiling.
And then they try to destroy everybody.
Exactly. So it's fascinating to see the psychology of it. But if you can figure out the right personalities for the type of mastermind you want, again, if I was to get together, bring a group of medical practitioners together to say, how do we minimize the risks of COVID-19, for example, I'd probably pull together a group of CARP to figure out the risks and where do we avoid things. But if it was okay, how do we reopen the economy after COVID? I would rely on a group of either sharks who are driven, but that's not going to give you long-term solutions, or I'd look to a group of dolphins and say, okay, blank canvas, what are we going to do? So the sharks, or sorry, the dolphins are always going through for what they call the breakthrough moment. So they're looking for that moment where we get through and we make the world a better place. So if you're looking for a big solution, put a group of dolphins together and see what happens.
I love that. I love that.
So that's my favorite little aha, because for me it was a game changer. Just recognizing, and looking back on the groups I've had in the past, it's fun and fascinating to recognize, okay, that group blew up because we had a shark in the midst. That group fell apart, died a slow death because it was carps. Oh, that group was a lot of fun. And by the way, you get a group of dolphins together, um, you need an agenda, you need a structure to it, because they'll easily get off on tangents. Um,
Because they
but
play
what,
nicely.
yeah, they're playing nicely, and it's they get to the level of competition where, okay, you just gave three great ideas. Well, I'm going to give four. So dolphins can be competitive, but it's in a giving sort of way.
Giving way. Wow.
So dolphins make great mastermind participants. Again, it depends on what your goals are. If your focus is healing or therapy, um, you may not need dolphins. But if you're
Oh,
running a board, you might want to have dolphins on your advisory board, for example,
wow.
or maybe have a shark as a consultant to your board, but in their own little space, so they're contained, and you need to be watching them always.
They've got boundaries.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sharks make great contractors. That if they're looking, anything that you do need somebody with a killer instinct, sharks can. But again, dolphins can adapt to that as needed as well. So that's kind of the heart of the mastermind, is having the right people in it. Now, if I can sort of transition from dolphins, I could talk about that part all day, because for me that was, the lights went on and I went, oh my god, I've been doing this haphazardly. The next one, which is kind of a big epiphany for me, and I can't believe it took me almost 50 years on this planet to figure it out. um, Optimist versus pessimist.
Yes.
So I have a contact who's done 30 years of research just sort of in this space, and he started with NLP, and he's kind of looked at language. 93% of the population on average is pessimistic.
90,
Now,
93.
93, and that might be a pessimistic answer, but he couldn't quote his source, so I don't know if this is anecdotal or actual science.
But look,
Um,
otherwise it'll be the Pareto principle of 80-20, but whatever it is, it's high.
it's high, yeah. And pessimists range from, I'm not going to plan a picnic because it's likely to rain, to, the world is terrible, why get out of bed? So, there's a range of pessimists. And then likewise, there's a range of optimists. So there's the optimist who says, I might as well try this because it'll probably work out. And then there's the wild, crazy optimist who will try anything, and they're not looking at their results. They're just trying things and hoping for the best. There's a sweet spot in the middle. You want sort of the low end of the optimism, where they'll do things, but you also want them to do the right things. So you don't want the wild-eyed optimist. Um, But if you target your ads, your marketing, your whatever it is you're doing, um, you can actually actively repel the strong pessimists. And the reason that's important is optimists will be your best clients. They'll try things, they'll do things, they'll listen to you. They tend to become raving fans quickly. And the most wonderful thing is they tend to know other optimists because they annoy the pessimists. So they'll attract more optimists to you.
Fantastic.
So and they'll also take more action on a day, and it's fascinating because optimists use the language yes and or no but. So if you ask them, would you be willing to do this activity? They'll say yes, and what if we did this activity? So they'll suggest another activity, or you'll ask them, have you done this before? And they'll say no, but let's try it. Now, this is interesting. Pessimists tend to use yes, but.
Mm.
And it's absolutely fascinating. I did a sales call with a lady, and our format is the first half hour, we're gauging fit. The second half hour, if they're fit, we're sharing our program and we're educating them and inviting them to join us. I was on a call with a hardcore negative pessimist, and she was like a ninja blocking everything I threw at her. And I kept the call going for the full hour just to count how many times she said yes, but. And it was amazing because as an optimist and as a dolphin, I gave her probably 100 ideas that would literally radically change her business. And every one of them she blocked. It was an amazing moment, and I just kept the call going to see if she'd get tired before I did. And it was a fun little exercise for me, but it proved my point very conclusively. And I have a recording of the video. Someday I'm going to actually go back and count the yeah buts.
Use it for training purposes.
We do actually. So we share it, our salespeople are very concerned about how do I recognize a pessimist? And I'm like, trust me, it's obvious. Excuse me. But
Trust me, it's obvious.
it's fascinating, and it's we're working on, so with your marketing materials, with your attraction tools, your lead conversion, your lead generation, everything should be specifically designed to attract your ideal. And we're looking at optimistic dolphins, which is,
Mm.
I just made that up. It's not a real term out there.
No, it is now.
It is now. So
We like it.
I don't know what an optimistic dolphin looks like or sounds like, but I know how they act. And they are about what's possible. And again, they're realistic enough to know that the things worth having take some effort. They're willing to put in that effort. But in a mastermind, if you can find the optimistic dolphins in your space, they will be amazing. And I'm going to use the phrase business partner, but they'll be amazing business partners without ever expecting to be a partner.
Mm.
And they'll
Mm.
show up and say, what's possible, right?
And I bet they're going to be your best friends forever, right?
They tend to form long-term relationships, and they deliberately seek out other people. And here's my big aha moment. When you're spending your days with dolphins, you're going to feel a lot of energy.
Mm.
And try this, and it's going to sound a little woo woo here, but whenever I have conversations with people, I always take an assessment of my energy at the end, and
Yeah.
is it higher or lower? And if you're spending your days with carp, they're going to drain you. If you're spending your days with sharks, you're going to have ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster. Whereas if you're spending your time And I've had some real deep dolphin conversations. My favorite's when you get a room full of dolphins together. It's amazing. We did a mastermind. It was a 3-hour session, and 2.5 hours later, the event venue people, this was back when you could meet face to face, the venue people came along and said, sorry, we need the room. But the energy was just up here and nobody wanted to leave. So it's easier to add value to a group of dolphins, especially the optimistic ones. And by the way, I'm not judging carp or sharks as bad. I'm just saying that they don't make great mastermind participants. Same with pessimists. The pessimist is going to challenge you on everything you do. They're going to question you. And at the end of the day, if you're around too many pessimists,
Mm,
you start to question what you're doing.
mm.
Whereas if you're with optimists, as an optimistic dolphin, I genuinely believe that with the right mastermind, we can change the world for the better. Is just to be very clear. The world doesn't need to be changed for the worse, obviously. But yeah, it's a fascinating process if you can sit back with a group of dolphins. And I look back on my university days. We used to have so-called study groups. We didn't actually study, but
Yes.
you get the right people sitting around, and you talk about impact on the world. You get the wrong group of people, they're sitting around talking about other people, and, oh, did you see what he was wearing, or did you hear what she said? you know that's not a group of dolphins, I can tell you that much.
So they're talking about people to bring them down. They're not talking about how to raise the world, how to
Yeah,
contribute, how to create something amazing.
absolutely.
Wow.
And that's the thing in a mastermind. If you've got a group that, instead of thinking about what's possible, they're criticizing, how somebody speaks or how somebody dresses, um, that's a clear indication you've got the wrong audience.
Hmm.
So that's some of my biggest secrets of masterminding. I'll share one more if we have time.
Please, we have time, Jeff. We're all listening. We're loving it. We've got lots
Actually, I'll
of
share.
amazing comments, by the way. Facebook, our family on Facebook are just gobbling all of this up. They're just so excited about
Awesome.
what.
Hi, everybody on Facebook. My one ask of you is, after this, don't go running to your marketing or branding expert and ask for dolphin logos.
Misha says she's been inundated since you spoke. Did you hear?
I heard that, so that's why I'm just saying, dolphins are good, but you don't necessarily need it on your logo. Um, Dolphins tend to be heart based, so focus on your heart, your feeling, your passion. That's probably more. A dolphin thing, I think we need a secret handshake or something, but
It's our
um,
heart-centered entrepreneurs, right? Who
absolutely.
are
And
contributors. They are philanthropists and longing to um, out compete each other, but in contribution.
yep. And one of the interesting things is when you use words like philanthropy or contribution, you'll actually repel sharks.
Ha.
So okay. I'm going to give you
Okay.
three things.
That's just such value there, right there, Jeff.
Yeah. So here's my
Shark
people ask
repellent.
shark repellent. Yes. So
I'm taking notes.
I have two questions I ask to determine if people are sharks, carp, or dolphin.
Yes.
By the way, explaining sharks, carp, or dolphin to people, carp will say, "Well, I'm a dolphin." So then they'll act like a dolphin until their energy runs out. Sharks will say, "Oh, that's what I need to do to fit in." So they'll adapt to be, they're predators. That's what they do. So I ask two questions, and usually the answers will give me a very good indication of who I'm playing with.
Tell me.
So the first question is, what's your view on philanthropy?
Ha.
Now, carp, God love them, they're the people that whenever somebody knocks on their door, they'll dig out, the pocket change, or they'll go through the cushions of their couch to find change, and they'll donate, and they'll be very proud that they gave $5 to the local charity. Their contributions are generally small, and it fits their view of life and their goals. Sharks believe in philanthropy only as a means to an end. So they'll do something philanthropic, and they can do grand things, they can do little things, but they'll only do it if it benefits them. So, for example, they're the type of donor that will donate money to a school or a hospital or what have you on the condition their name is on the building. So that's sharks. Dolphins always have this goal of making the world a better place. They'll donate big sums of money, usually anonymously.
Honestly, yes.
If their name is on a building, it's because they're beloved, not because they donated. So that's the fundamental difference is philanthropy. The other one is ask them about their goals.
Mm.
So CARP's goals are usually tied to inflation or not losing. So they have really, sorry to judge, but depressing goals. They're just happy to be in the same place next year. Anything above that scares them. Literally, if you talk about, your life being 10% better, they'll panic, they'll self-sabotage, and they'll stay where they're comfortable. Now, sharks have massive, lofty goals most of the time, but it's always, I call it violent because it's always at the expense of someone. So they might say, if Joe was a shark, she would say, I'm going to make Influencer magazine the best magazine out there by crushing someone. So the sharks always want to crush their competitor. So there's always some poor random person who's a target to the shark. It'll be the business across the road, whatever it is. I win, you lose. Dolphins, on the other hand, always have a lofty goal. Maybe it's a modest goal, but it's lofty compared to carp. But their goal is there's always a qualification of, and I'm going to make the world a better place. So it could be as simple as, and I'm going to give my kids a better life, or it's going to, I'm going to raise money and I'm going to build flower pots and make my community beautiful. Like there's always a bigger impact than just, it's not the money. And it's fascinating because dolphins tend to struggle with answering the question, how much income would you like? Because they tend to talk in terms of impact. And that's a fascinating one. But a shark, if you ask them what's their income goal, they've got a number off the tip of their tongue faster than you can ask the question.
Wow. That's so interesting, Jeff.
Yeah, I've been testing this out and it's fascinating. And if you want to see if somebody's an optimist or a pessimist, give them a simple idea that would improve their business,
Yes.
and see if they say yes and or yeah but.
These days you probably just have to cough near them and you'd know, right?
Exactly. Cough or sneeze, I guarantee the pessimists are running away or asking you to check your temperature.
Or shooting, you know.
Exactly. So now the last two things I want to give you are adding action. So one thing masterminds are notorious for, and this was my bias coming in, everybody sits around and you throw out ideas. The problem is if you've got busy entrepreneurs, you throw a bunch of ideas at them, they get overwhelmed and eventually they stop coming. Now they'll rave about you, they'll say it was amazing, but they stop coming because you've given them that sense of, nagging sense of ongoing failure that I'm not doing anything. So if you're adding masterminds, one of the things I suggest is you have an execution moment. And so what we do is, if in one meeting, if you're in the hot seat, we'll brainstorm ideas for you. You go away, you process them, you pick your top three, and then you come back to the next meeting. And in that meeting, we're going to brainstorm, how do we absolutely positively guarantee your success? And so we're focusing on action, which makes it significantly different. And we're looking at ideas that will 10x a business, not double, because easier to 10x than double.
I love
So
that's dolphin talk, right?
that's dolphin talk, which, by the way, will repel carp. Um,
But
but
attract sharks.
yeah, it attracts sharks. So you got to blend in philanthropy with the 10x
Okay.
because the sharks will say, well, what's the point?
So 10,
Uh,
so 10x to make the world a better place. Have we got it?
yeah, that is sort of the language.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
So that will attract dolphins. It'll repel sharks. Um, and that's, just a fun thing. If you're running live local events or online events, um, make it a paid event with all proceeds going to charity.
There we go.
That will filter out the carp because they're not going to want to spend money to charity. It'll filter out a lot of sharks because there's no recognition for them. So why would they do it? But it will attract dolphins, and the dolphins will share it with other dolphins. So action is the fundamental ingredient that you need to add to the mastermind. And so what we do is you bring your top three things, three strategic things that can move your business forward, and we'll brainstorm idea number one until you say to the group, yes, I guarantee I can succeed with this. If we have time, we move on to topic two. If we have time, topic three. But worst case, we've given you ideas today. How do you execute on the number one strategy to move you forward? So that's a huge shift in the mind, the masterminding. And then the last one is the frequency of meetings. If you don't meet frequently enough, people will naturally put off taking action. So a
Ah,
lot of people want to meet once a month, which means most human beings will do their homework the night before. You can't cram a month worth of strategy into an evening, so you're not going to see results. So the next part is we have an accountability partner, and you'll check in with each other every week to see how you're doing.
mm.
Again, looking at the Alcoholics Anonymous model, you have a sponsor.
It's a bad time to be having a sip.
That was a bad timing. I'm sorry. Um, with Alcoholics Anonymous, you have a sponsor who, if you're struggling, you call them. Now, I haven't personally experienced it, but I have friends who are in programs, and that accountability, if they can't make it to a meeting for a week, the stress is that don't leave them. So having that accountability partner is huge. So if you're doing a mastermind, whatever the outcome is, whatever your desire is, we have weekly check-ins, and we also have our meetings every 2 weeks. That deliberate structure helps people get results, but it also ensures that they're moving forward. So there's always an outcome. Nobody would watch a basketball game if there was no score clock, if there was no rules. You know, People want
Very
to see.
true.
We need to know the game we're playing. We need to know what the rules are,
Mm.
and we can use that to make the world a better place.
Such great value here, Jeff.
Now, I know we're a little long on time. I know most Facebook Lives are shorter, but I hope this um, gives people value. And I've done sessions as long as 3-4 hours on masterminds. I can literally talk about them all day. So um, if your viewers have questions, tell them they can just
Fantastic.
post and tag me, and I'll happily answer.
We have got some wonderful questions. So many people just loving this. Thank goodness I've got a whole bunch saying that I'm not a shark. So it's like, yay! I've got some people in my corner talking about dolphins swimming in the Venice canals these days since COVID. Did you know that?
I actually read that, and I read that it's actually a hoax. Somebody
Oh,
faked.
no. The shark posted.
It must have been. I'm not sure what the intention was, but somebody posted it, and I've seen wonderful Photoshop photos. Um, Yeah, there's no doubt the world is cleaner, but yeah, that one specifically, I loved it, so I was sharing it with people, and then somebody sent me a fact checker site, and I'm like, oh,
Oh dear. Oh
but
dear.
dolphins, we want to believe it, so
Yes, but we don't want to just be naive. That's not good.
exactly. There's a fine line between optimist and naive, so
Exactly. We want to just keep that scientific base, right?
yeah. So that's yeah, I love talking about the masterminds. I love how it can impact the world, but the way I see it, if we get the right people together, and history has a long line of, there's a lot of examples of masterminds, good and bad, and I don't like to go into the bad, but um, there is a power to a mastermind that you will never get from one-on-one coaching. You'll never get from one-to-many guru models. A mastermind, and this is the fascinating thing for me as a facilitator. A good mastermind should never be work. It should feel like fun. It should be
Okay.
every meeting's better than the last.
So it's your treat. You go there because it's your happy place, not because it's a chore.
Yeah, if you're thinking, oh, mastermind next week, I don't want to go, you're probably in the wrong group. And yeah, and as a facilitator, your goal should be, again, the old adage, you have one mouth, two ears. So your goal as a facilitator should be to listen and ask questions. Tell me more. Um, our secret question that has made a huge difference is we get people to ask, how does this apply to me?
Hmm.
Because human beings, we naturally filter out, our brain does a lot to filter out the noise, and it's looking for, the threats and the opportunities. It ignores the routine. So when you ask the question, how does this apply to me? It's actually forcing your brain to think about, well, because our natural is, oh, that doesn't apply, let's forget it. But if you're brainstorming and you're getting ideas, and sometimes how does this apply to me is as simple as, okay, I'm not going to do it, you know, but usually you'll find some gem of wisdom where you go, aha, and I see that a lot in meetings. Somebody will throw out something really complicated, and when somebody says, how does this apply to me, they're going to look at it and say, well, I would never do it that way, but if I took away all of the extra parts and I focused on this part, it would be really successful.
Wow.
So how does this apply to me is probably our number one secret weapon in the world of masterminds, because you're forcing yourself. And in traditional masterminds, only the person in the hot seat gets value because they're getting ideas. But if you're asking, how does this apply to me,
With a accountability
you're,
partner.
yeah, with an accountability partner, you're distilling the ideas, and you're figuring out, what's my action step from this. So this is not theoretical or hypothetical. It's okay, after this meeting, I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to do something and change the world. Here's how. So that to me is the power of a mastermind.
Wow. We've got an interesting question from Facebook.
Oh, do tell.
So Diane Francis is saying, what do you think about having a guest speaker in each month for a mastermind, or would you facilitate it?
So it depends is the short answer. Um, we actually, in our agenda, we have time for what we call high value content. Um, we welcome experts, and as long as it fits the theme and the goal of the mastermind, absolutely. I know one group, they actually brought in an expert speaker on bonsai trees because they had a little segment they called More Life, and they were sharing ideas for hobbies or things you could do outside of your business. Um, but the key is, it's got to be the right speaker for the audience. And again, I think that's takes the pressure off the facilitator. You don't need to be the expert. One of my contacts is a university professor, and he really struggled facilitating because he wants to be the expert all the time. And I put it in his terms, and I said, well, no, this is like student-led learning. You're there to moderate, you're there to facilitate, not to teach. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't think of it that way. And so there's a big aha moment. But yeah, if you bring in guest speakers, as long as they fit the group, the theme, the goals, takes a lot of the pressure off.
So for a section, I'd imagine, but
Yeah.
the facilitation of the mastermind, all those minds who they're gathered with a similar goal, similar intention, all invested interest.
And usually what we do is after an expert speaks, we'll give everybody 15, 20 minutes to journal and say, okay, how does this apply to me?
Yes.
And we're getting them to take the theoretical and create action items out of it. So I would never have a speaker in that's too long, so you sacrifice the action part. So it's, I'm a big fan of TED Talks. It's like, get in, cover the point, get out. Maybe there's follow-up questions, but it's got to be fuel for brainstorming that helps them take action to their goals.
Yes, fantastic. Fantastic. So it's action driven.
Yeah. Now, sometimes you want just inspiration, fine. But for the most part, people that are in masterminds will find their own inspiration in life and they'll share it. I like to keep the masterminds focused on results. What result am I going to get out of this?
Exactly. People can find their own inspiration. They don't want to pay a whole bunch for something they can Google or look for on YouTube.
Exactly. And quite frankly, the TED sites, TED Talks, TEDx, whatever, they have a lot of amazing content. You could ask your people to watch a video before coming to the session, and then in the session you talk about how does this apply to me. So it's the key is I'm going to misquote Einstein, but basically the mastermind should be as simple as it can be and no simpler. So make it about results. And that's the fundamental thing. If you make it about results, people will commit the time to it.
Yes.
If you make it about the time, people will question why they're not getting results.
Wow.
So any other hot questions we need to ask or answer?
Let's have a look if there's anything else. I think that was just, you've given us so much to think about, Jeff. It's been brilliant. I've put in the strategy of the dolphin. I need to actually just check the author. You said it was Douglas Lynch, is that right? Linch?
It is Dudley Lynch.
Dudley, okay.
Yeah. And he has a co-author, and I am sorry.
That's it. If people can find it with that, we will.
Yeah, Strategy of Dolphin, Scoring a Win in a Chaotic World. It's Dudley Lynch and Paul Kordis. Kordis is Kordis.
Don't worry, I'm not going to put it in. Sorry. It's just like, we'll just do what we need to do. Brilliant.
And as a side note, the authors, they've created some personality profiles. So you can actually, and this is something I'm exploring right now, do full-blown behavior profiles to see how your group members play together or interact together.
Well, please, Jeff, we need that. We're going to have to search for that. I'll find it and add it to this link.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating space. And yeah, for me, that was the big aha, that if you find out you got a shark, make sure you escort them off the premises as quickly as you can before they cause damage. It's
Thank
not a matter of if, it's when.
it's Wayne. Thank you. That's such wisdom. Such wisdom. You know, I've got as a nurse, in my past, I've got 100 dolphins being posted here, which is very cute. But being a nurse, you know what it's like. You and maybe maybe it's that optimistic dolphin. You want to save the world, you know. You're
Yeah.
quite sure you can reform, conform, love them better. And some people just, if they're staying in victim mode, they're just not going to get better because it doesn't suit them. Am I right?
They will actively sabotage results to stay in that victim space because ironically that's where they feel safe.
Right.
That's what they know. So it's a harsh thing, but I've had to recognize, and this is my big, I have a big heart and I feel the pain of everyone I haven't managed to save as a coach.
Yes.
And at times, and I share this, sometimes as a coach, you think, well, I don't want to open myself up to that pain because I hate to feel that because we overreact to pain. We're going to remember that one failure of ours rather than the 99 successes. But for me, learning about the dolphins and the carp, it was, I look back and the clients I've seen fail, as you said, they sabotage everything we do so that they can stay where they're comfortable. And yet I'm actually harming them by trying to pull them
Pull them
out
out
of their
of the
comfort zone,
ditch. Or out of the ditch.
out of the ditch where they were like, wait, I was happy there. That's
Yes. I keep telling people, I am not going to sit in the ditch and cry with you. I will hug you in the ditch and lift you out. And if you're not ready to come out, I'm not going to sit there and have snot on my shoulder.
there is an image, but yeah, that's the reality. And I don't want to sound harsh, but if you're coaching carp, you're gonna spend your life with snot on your shoulders. Sorry.
It's like, uh-oh.
That's the image everybody wanted to
My image.
everybody. But it's true, and that's the thing. If you develop, there's a bit of a martyr complex, and if you're trying to save carp, just know that your view of saving them is harming them.
Mm.
Now, and this is where you can have an impact, is if you can show them there's a better way, if you can show them the path to abundance. But especially a pessimistic carp, they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna have those ninja skills deflecting everything. They don't want to believe that the world can be a better place.
So we keep hoping it's a dolphin in disguise, but it's not.
Yeah. And if a dolphin, you might have a dolphin born to dolphins, and then some trauma happens in their childhood. They might show up in the world as a carp or a shark,
Yes.
and they might need to be awakened to what's possible. So, as a coach, I sell transformation, and for me, that's the big aha. Dolphins have a lot more room for transformation. I mean, it's blank canvas. They're happy to have you paint your masterpiece. Carp, they just want a little more, and sharks just want to learn how to get
Without
the
too
edge.
much hard work, is that it?
Yeah, carp just they're a lot of work for little gain.
And they
You
don't
know?
want to work.
Yeah, they don't they don't see the point of working harder because I'm going to lose anyway, so why bother? So as a coach, that was a freeing moment for me. And I've coached people that, I had one client for 6 months. We worked together, and every call was a repeat of the last one, to the point where I'm like, you should just watch the recordings. And but it was like, I'd give her ideas, she'd refuse them. I'd give her ideas, she'd refuse them. And it just, you know, some people say, oh, a client's a client, life is good. But I'd be, on these calls, I'd leave drained going, why am I coaching people? You know, like you question your own gifts, your own talent.
And
But when I
passion for
realized, yeah, you know, when you let them go and let them be, carp are happy being unhappy.
you need to allow people free will to be unhappy.
Yeah, and you know, carp are best served by a book or a podcast. Like,
They'd
you
rather
know,
have the freebie anyway, I'm sure.
yeah, and that's, you know, by the way, another fun thing. The carp are the ones, and I see these posts all over Facebook all the time. They're looking for the next free thing, the next free thing, the next free thing. They'll never actually invest in something that's meaningful because secretly they don't necessarily believe they're worthy of the result.
Oh,
So by putting a price tag, and you know, we charge 25,000 for a year of masterminds, we eliminate any desire whatsoever for carp to say, you know, I'll give it a shot. So
nobody's going to give it a shot. You're right. You've got to be a high player or don't play.
yeah,
That's brilliant.
so you want them all in. So my advice is don't do free masterminds, don't do disorganized agenda free ones, don't just, you know, get too free flow, have a purpose, help people get results.
Fantastic. Wow.
So
Wow.
that's, should we wrap up or do we have more questions? I've got about 5 minutes left and then I got
We've got
another.
people looking for dolphin partners. I don't know if you want to answer any wonderful. I've married a pessimist, a pessimistic cop, says someone. We will leave.
We won't name names. And again, there's no judgment here. It's just, you know, it's a fascinating thing. But if you recognize, you know, who you are, who your spouse is, you can communicate in a way, you know, again, if you're married to a pessimistic carp, you're going to annoy the heck out of him if you're throwing a bunch of ideas. Just quietly get on with it, do your thing, change the world, and come back and say, hey, guess what happened? Like, you know, carp will get on board with the program, but they're not going to support the work to do it. They're going to say, why bother?
Wow.
You
So,
know,
so there's a wonderful training that we got with Jeff. How much time have you got? Because we don't want to hold you up.
I have about 5 minutes.
Okay, no, we'll leave it. We'll leave it. We'll talk another day about that. But it's absolutely, I love this because it's just so insightful. Thank you so much, Jeff, for everything that you've poured out for us today. And people, we're going to be leaving Jeff's link for his mastermind in the comments, so you can watch that, join that. I highly recommend. Jeff is just most absolutely just an amazing dolphin to jump in a pod with.
Well, thank you for having me, Joe. And I'm just going to share for anybody out there who is a dolphin, look at the language on the landing page that Joe's going to share. We agonize. Our masterclass is called The Fastest Way to 10x Your Business, 10 Revenue Generating Super Strategies.
Oh,
And just full disclosure, that in and of itself eliminates carp, but it'll attract dolphins and sharks.
wow.
Now, in the program, it's a 3-hour masterclass where we teach you why it's easier to 10x than 2x. We teach you our 10 revenue generating super strategies, which you adopt one, you're going to see a difference. And then we have our chief operating officer, the last hour. He's talking about how you can free up 10 hours a week in your business. I took pages of notes listening to David on that topic. But our language is deliberately, we're filtering out the sharks. So sharks and carp, love you, but stay out of my pod. I'm not here to play with everyone. But for the dolphins, come and play. We have a lot of fun. You know, we've spent decades figuring out what works in masterminds. We happily share it in our classes. But yeah, definitely come and play. And if you want to change the world, I firmly believe masterminds are the best tool to do that, to change your world, change the world around you. So thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you, Jeff. We're getting some wonderful comments. The one comment is your next mastermind, Jeff, will be relationship counseling for dolphins.
I feel that that is definitely, there's room for
There's
that.
not room. It sounds essential.
It's, yeah, I mean, and relationship to
In
me,
prenup, not not later.
if you show up as a dolphin, here's what you can expect. Yeah, I think, I mean, the reality is the relationship side of it is huge. And that's been my biggest win in life is okay, if I meet a shark, I'm at a space where I don't want to play with them. So I move on and, it's, but just, I've been aware of this for about 3 months now. Um, Deliberately reaching out to dolphins has been huge for my business. I connected with one dolphin and he's introduced me to 2,000 of my ideal clients in one little, I did a session on ironically on masterminds, and we had 200 people apply for strategy sessions out of that one little conversation.
Wow.
So playing with dolphins is a lot more fun. And if anyone thinks that coaching or influence has to be work, you're not playing with the right people.
Oh, I
That's
love
my parting thoughts.
I love that. And so dolphins are not afraid to make money.
They're not afraid to make money. They know that they need money for their essentials,
They're
but
going to change the world. They're going to have to have it, right?
yeah, it's influence without money. There's a quote, and I can't remember who to attribute it to, but the quote is, "There's nothing sadder than a broke philanthropist." And that one hits me hard because a lot of people think, "Oh, I got to give away, give away." Well, as a dolphin, you owe it to the world to make the world a better place. Money is just a means of accomplishing that.
Mhm. No, if we're gonna change things radically with massive impact, we're gonna have to be able to do that. To do what it takes. We can't just stand on the sidelines and be cute and say, "Wouldn't it be nice?" We've actually got to
Wave a nice little sign.
yeah, we got to roll up our sleeves and do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
And
Yes, tell me.
I was gonna say, and that I think is the role, entrepreneurs are gonna solve the problems in the world. They're gonna find a way.
I agree.
Governments fail, when religions fail, entrepreneurs will find that way, and specifically optimistic dolphin entrepreneurs.
Yes, 100%. Oh, that's what we're looking for. Optimistic dolphin entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Done
That
deal.
that's the holy grail.
Thanks, Jeff. That's absolutely fantastic. We've got lots of people saying thank you. We've got hearts going all over the screen the last half hour. So everybody's just loving what you've given us. Thank you so very much. We will add your links into the Facebook feed and onto YouTube. And thank you so much, Jeff. This has been awesome.
It was fun. Thank you very much, Joe. Always a pleasure to play with another dolphin.
And I want to thank all of our Facebook family because our Influencer magazine family are just the most amazing bunch of dolphins who I just love because their hearts are just so for uplifting each other. And if anyone is not part of us yet, you need to really join tribes because we're having such a lot of fun and making sure that everybody wins. So, Jeff, we will just yes, I just hope you just boom so much in the next little while from all of these people who are watching that it would be amazing to see.
Well, thank you, Joe. And to the dolphins out there, bring your friends to Influencer Magazine. This is a fun place, a fun pod for us to hang out. And fun fact, where dolphins play, it's called a dolphinarium. So there we go.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everyone. Bye.